The hum of the tires is the one thing that never argues back. Evan keeps his hands loose on the wheel and his eyes on the white dashes that wing past like thrown bones. Route 66 at night is a ribbon of dark glass, edges torn with brush, and the occasional wind-flattened billboard that still insists on better times. Whole pies, full service, vacancy. The kind of promises that turn to dust when you get close. He is not headed anywhere in particular. West is precise enough. Motion is the point. Stopping has never gone well for him. When you stop, the questions get in the car. The dashboard clock insists it's 1:27 a.m. The phone says. No service, and has for the last 90 miles. The radio took 20 minutes of fiddling to find a station that wasn't static. When it landed, it was on an oldie set with a talk show that sounds taped decades ago. A man with a molasses drawl is talking about safe driving habits and the importance of headlights at night, the advice drifting up from another century. Every few miles, a dry wind shoves the car, and the hood vibrates like it's laughing under its breath. Low fuel chirps half-heartedly. He's been nursing the last quarter tank, bargaining with the needle. It's not about the money. It's about refusing to pause. But the road is a tyrant, and it wants its tax. A green sign appears gas 1 mile above a bent pole, the arrow pointing down at a patch of sky. He almost ignores it. Almost. The station sits alone in a concrete flare. 4 pumps beneath a corrugated canopy that wheezes with the wind. Fluorescents buzz overhead, haloed in moths. The sign says Roy's in red letters. 2 bulbs in the R are out, giving it a lopsided grin. Someone has taped a piece of paper to the door that says open 24 hours in neat block letters. The kind of confidence paper doesn't deserve. Evan pulls up, kills the engine, and listens to the way silence arrives, a pressure easing off the skull. He fills the tank, watching the numbers ratchet up like a counting spell. Over the pump handle, someone has carved a word with a T. It could be help. It could be held. The last stroke is a scratch that trails off like a thought that wouldn't finish. Inside, the bell above the door chimes twice, slow. The air smells like coffee that went through something hard. A man in his 50s, maybe older, maybe younger, stands behind the counter in a shirt that used to be white. He's got a paperback face and the kind of eyes that check exits by habit. Back so soon? The clerk says. Evan smiles like it's a joke he doesn't mind missing. First time? The clerk's gaze lingers like he's trying to put a name to a flavor. Coffee's fresh, he says, and then makes a face like he knows that isn't true. Fresh enough. Evan buys a coffee anyway, and a cellophane-wrapped brownie with a sell-by date that was an optimist. He slides his card across. The clerk rings it up, punches something into a machine that whirs like it's teaching itself to breathe. The receipt prints in a thin gray ribbon. The clerk tears it free, sets it on the counter, then hesitates and pulls a second one from under his palm. As if he'd forgotten he'd already done this. This yours, the clerk says, offering the second slip first. Evan glances down. His name. His signature, if you can call that spiky line a name. Same total. Same card. Same station ID. The time stamp reads 10:11 p.m. He laughs because it's easier than the other thing. Your system's off? Must be. The clerk nods like that's a mercy. He slides both receipts toward Evan now, as if returning something that got away. You looked worse last time, he says, a little cheerful, the way people are when the weather isn't their fault. On the wall behind the clerk hangs a clock with a cracked plastic face. The minute hand trembles between numbers, undecided. The second hand drags in tiny jerks, like it's fighting through syrup. It says 10:11 too. I was at mile marker 287 at 10:11, Evan says before he can stop himself. He has no proof of that. He just doesn't like being told where he's been. He folds the receipts into his wallet, with his thumb already on the crease, and feels, with a small cold certainty that the top one already has a coffee stain in exactly the place where his coffee will later slop. He closes the wallet and the feeling shuts with it. Road does strange things at night, the clerk says. Gets into people's heads. You be careful out there. Always, Evan says. He says it like a promise. He says it like he hasn't already broken it. Back outside, the wind has found a higher gear. The canopy groans. He takes a cautious sip of coffee and thinks about how caffeine is just a debt to the morning. When he opens his car door, the smell of the interior greets him, the sun-baked vinyl, the whisper of a cheap pine air freshener hanging from the mirror. It used to be a green tree. It's colorless now, just an outline of what it was supposed to be. Next to it hangs a St. Christopher medal, the silver worn thin at the edges. He picked it up at a flea market 2 towns back, not because he believes in saints, but because he believes in weight. He checks the back seat without meaning to. Just the duffel, the blanket rolled tight, the paperback he won't finish. The seatbelt buckle lies sideways like a small metal tongue. He tells himself he isn't checking for anyone. He is checking for the idea of anyone. That's different. He starts the engine. Back on the road, the sky is an unlit dome. There's no moon. The stars look like they've moved farther away to think about things. He passes a black field where, in daylight, there might be cows or cars or a stadium full of people waiting for the second half. Now there is only the suggestion of a fence, the gleam of a nail head, the scuttle of something small that wants only to be left out of this. The radio, which had found its confidence with the oldies, surrenders to static again, then snaps into a warbling jingle, buckle up for safety. Buckle up. The melody is bright and tinny, as if played from inside a tin can. It ends with a voice that is not a singer's voice at all, but a person speaking close to the microphone, a little breathy. Don't stop at the diner. Then the station drops away into a snowstorm of sound. Evan turns the dial, like that's how one refuses a suggestion. The dial does nothing. He turns it back. The car feels smaller. At mile marker 302, a shape crosses the road. 1 second there is nothing, and the next there is a figure where nothing was. Evan's foot goes to the brake with the reflex of a prayer. The seatbelt locks across his chest. The car's nose dips, and the world tilts forward. In the headlights, he sees a flashcloth or hair, something pale that becomes legible only as it exits understanding. He stops dead, hazard lights clicking their metronome into the night. He breathes, counting to 5, as if numbers are candles you can blow out. The road ahead is a flat sheet. He opens his door and steps into the wind. Hey, he calls, voice pinched thin by the empty. The word goes out and drops at his feet like a coin. He walks to the shoulder, scanning the brush, the ditch, the skim of dust, where footprints would be if this were that kind of story. There are no footprints. There is no story that starts here. The only sound is that blistering whisper of the wind as it pulls at the weeds. When he steps back to the driver's side, he notices it. A faint outline of a handprint on the windshield, 5 splayed fingers, the palm a smudge where skin would meet glass. He holds up his own hand and doesn't quite touch it. The size is wrong. The angle is wrong. It looks like it was pressed from the inside. He gets in, shuts the door, and the handprint is gone. Or it was never there. His heart is still a panicked thing that wants out of the cage. He gives it something to do and puts the car in drive. Another billboard rises. Betty's Diner 2 miles ahead. A smiling waitress holds a slice of pie aloft. A flag for better choices. The paint has peeled at the corners, giving the pie a weathered hunger. He passes it and, after a stretch of road that feels longer than 2 miles, passes it again. This time the paint is more intact. The waitress's smile has more teeth in it. Don't stop at the diner. He hears again, except this time it isn't the radio. This time it's memory deciding it wants an opinion. He doesn't stop at the diner. Momentum is its own superstition. The road begins to fold in on itself in small ways, like a map being closed by invisible hands. He sees the same RV, parked on the shoulder twice, its curtains pulled shut, its world sealed by a line of blue painter's tape along the door. He sees a pair of shoes on the centerline work boots, toes scuffed, laces tied together, every bit of it a dare. He rolls past the carry-out window of a drive-through that isn't attached to anything anymore. When the needle drifts up from the quarter tank he bought to half, just enough to be insulting, he glances down at the receipt he set on the seat. Coffee ring, a smear of thumb, his name. He slips it into his wallet and finds, tucked behind his license, another Roy's receipt he doesn't remember pocketing. The crease is in the same place. The coffee ring is the same shape lighter, as if someone had tested the stain before committing to it. He closes the wallet hard enough that the leather pops. He adjusts the mirror. The St. Christopher medal flicks, catching the light, making a brief, perfect circle. The air freshener tree swings like a pendulum that has someplace to be. Ahead, the road climbs a low hill. On the crest, far in the distance, a neon flicker scrapes the sky, open 24 hours winking in that human way that isn't a wink. He feels the old automatic drift of his hands toward comfort and corrects it, keeps the wheel steady. He murmurs to the empty car, "Not tonight," because it's easier to talk to empty things. The radio accepts a station again, as if bribed by resolve. The croon is tinny and cheerful and older than he is. Somewhere in his chest, something unties itself, and then ties again. He rolls the window down an inch, lets the air in, cool and raw and a little metallic, the taste of penny on the tongue. He tells himself the receipt mix-up was a glitch, the handprint a trick of condensation, the voice on the radio a prank from a transmitter, with a sense of humor and too much time. He tells himself everything he needs to get to the next mile. As the hill falls away, the neon vanishes. His headlights shear off into open dark. The lane lines reel him forward, relentless as a conveyor belt. Evan drives on, and the road, pleased to be obeyed, opens its mouth. The night after Roy's station unspools like an elastic band, stretched too thin, threatening to snap. Evan drives with his elbow on the window, the air just cool enough to sting his knuckles. He hasn't spoken since he left the gas station, unless you count the muttered curse when the radio slipped back into static. The highway ahead glows pale in the beams of his headlights, a perfect path that seems carved just for him, though he knows better. At mile marker 314, the air changes. He doesn't hear it. He feels it. The pressure of the world eases, then returns twice as heavy, like a lung taking a long drag. That's when he sees the figure. A woman, no, maybe just a shape stands at the shoulder, thumb half raised in an uncertain plea. She's dressed in pale fabric that might be white if the night allowed color. Her hair, long and unkempt, flicks sideways in the wind like strands trying to run away. Evan tells himself he doesn't pick up strangers. He's too cautious, too tired, too smart. Yet when he blinks, she's suddenly closer, as though the car had already drifted toward her. He realizes his hand has slackened on the wheel, guiding the vehicle against his better judgment. He sighs, mutters, "Don't stop at the diner," like it's a competing commandment, and pulls onto the gravel. The passenger door opens without him unlocking it. The hinges groan, the sound swallowed by the night. She slides in without a word. The smell that follows her is neither perfume nor sweat, but something sharp and mineral dust, rain on asphalt, a trace of iron. "Where are you headed?" Evan asks, his voice more careful than curious. The hitchhiker doesn't look at him. Her gaze fixes on the road ahead, as if she's been waiting to continue a journey she started years ago. When she speaks, it's nearly a whisper. "Not the diner." His knuckles tense on the steering wheel. He glances sideways, ready to catch her face in the pale glow of the dash. But the mirror betrays him her reflection isn't in it. Only the empty seat. In the corner of his eye, she sits still as a statue. The car fills with silence thick enough to chew. He coughs into it. I wasn't planning on stopping. She nods faintly, though he can't tell if it's to him or to the memory of someone else. For the next few miles, she doesn't move. Her hands rest limp in her lap. When the radio hisses into half music, half static, she finally reacts. Her head tilts, listening. The tune is the same jingle from before Buckle Up for Safety, but distorted, stretched, warbling like it's underwater. Then a low voice cuts through. She never makes it past the diner. Evan shivers, turns the dial off, and grips the wheel tighter. You hear that? He asks before remembering she might not answer. This time she does. Her voice sharpens, quick and cold. Don't turn off. He swallows, wondering what she means. Then the road offers its trick. Up ahead, a side street appears that shouldn't exist, lit by a glowing street lamp over a sign that reads Betty's Diner. The asphalt yawns invitingly, a black tongue. His foot twitches on the brake. The car nudges toward the turn, like a horse sensing water. He fights it back, jaw locked. The hitchhiker's hand darts out sudden, shocking pressing against his forearm. Her skin is colder than metal left out overnight. Keep straight. Her grip lingers until the side street dissolves in the rearview mirror. Evan exhales, muscles unwinding too fast, his pulse in his ears. He risks a glance at her. She's gone. The seat is empty. The air is still heavy with that iron dust scent. On the passenger seat, where her hands had rested, lies a crumpled photograph. Evan picks it up with fingers that don't feel entirely his own. It's a snapshot of a wrecked car on the shoulder of Route 66, his car. Same make, same scratches, even the dent on the left fender he's been ignoring. The picture is faded, dated in the corner, 1987. He grips the wheel again, heart dragging against his ribs. His car was manufactured in 2005. The road unfolds before him, endless, daring him to believe it leads anywhere at all. Evan drives with the window cracked, the night air drawing a thin line across his face, sharp enough to keep him awake. The glove box won't sit quite flush. It bulges as if the photograph inside is breathing. He keeps telling himself that if the road is a trickster, the way to beat it is to make your own choices before it makes them for you. He says it twice, like a superstition, and presses on. The first wash of neon is too sudden to be honest pink smeared into blue, as if someone dragged a highlighter across the horizon. Then the sign itself materializes from the dark. Betty's DINER open 24 hours, each word stacked like a cheerful command. He passes it with both hands steady on the wheel. 2 minutes later, the sign appears again, same angle, same flicker where the O in open can't decide what it wants. He passes it again, jaw clamped. The third time, he doesn't so much arrive as find it already next to him. A side road splits off that wasn't there, a black tongue of asphalt curling toward a rectangle of yellowed windows. The "Don't stop at the diner" warning rises in his chest like old smoke. He keeps straight. The engine coughs. The temperature gauge jerks up to red and then back to normal. The steering wheel shivers in his hands as if something enormous just brushed the undercarriage. Fine, he says to the empty car. On my terms. He turns in. The lot has 3 vehicles. A long-nosed truck with a paint job that once believed in candy apple red. A compact gray sedan with a halo of frost, though the night runs warm. And a motorcycle leaned on its kickstand, its shadow pointing the wrong direction. The open sign in the window blinks on a rhythm that feels like a heartbeat taking its time. When he opens the glass door, the bell chimes twice deliberate, not metallic so much as conversational. The smell rolls over him. Coffee, fryer oil trained to live forever, floor cleaner that lost the argument. Pale booths line the windows. A horseshoe counter hugs the grill. Everything is clean enough to pass. not clean enough to be proud of. The kind of place that has stories, because it doesn't have secrets. A waitress appears from behind the pie case with a practiced smile, hair piled into a beehive that deserves its own zip code, white uniform pressed to within an inch of kindness. Name tag, Betty, because of course it is. Her lipstick is perfect the way the horizon is perfect, because someone refuses to admit they're tired. Evening, hun. She sets down a menu that has never not been sticky. You look like a coffee. He almost says no out of contrariness. Sure. Sit anywhere, she sings, and not that one. Her hand gestures to a corner booth without moving at all. He hadn't chosen it. He wasn't going to. The booth sits in a patch of shadow, its vinyl torn in a way that looks like claw marks or a drafting compass used in a hurry. He picks the next one over. The clock on the wall above the pass window has a crack like lightning through the face. It says 10:11. The second hand flinches and stops, and flinches again, like it's remembering a story it doesn't want to tell. Evan looks at his phone out of habit. No service. 127A, the numbers don't argue. They simply refuse to speak. Betty pours coffee into a pale diner mug with a lip thick enough to bounce. The surface takes on a skin. He wraps his hands around it for the warmth and the pretense that warmth is transferable. You come far? She asks, like it doesn't matter what he says, and also like she already knows. Far enough. She sets a small saucer with 2 single-serve creams. They're the peel-top kind with pastoral cows on the foil. One has been punctured. He turns it a 1/4 inch, and the image on the lid blinks and looks away. Behind the counter, a cook flips something that might be pancakes and might be intention. His arms move in slow, efficient arcs. The 2 patrons are the kind of men every diner keeps in inventory. One in a ball cap that has adopted his skull, another with the newspaper splayed like a tent. They don't chat. They don't check their phones. They look up in the small, exact same moment when Betty says, "You looked worse last time." Evan smiles like the joke is fine. "I've never been here." "Course not," she says, as if they've reached agreement. She pulls a guest check from the spike and lays it face down by his elbow. It has writing pressed through from the top copy. He doesn't look. The radio behind the counter isn't so much a radio as a room tone with opinions. It hisses and dials and then settles into a jingle so familiar his teeth hurt. Buckle up for safety. Buckle up. The end of the jingle does what it did at the station. It shucks off its cheerfulness and drops into a close, breathy voice. The words arrive without music, as if someone has leaned across the counter to speak just to him. She never makes it past the diner. Betty taps the radio, and it goes to static again. "This old thing," she says, and the apology is so well worn it shines. Evan stands, feeling the coffee pin his stomach in place, and wanders along the wall where the photos live. Every diner has it, a shrine of frames and thumbtacked Polaroids, a history no one paid for. The frames here are arranged by nothing he can name. He sees truckers with elbows out and toothy grins, a softball team in uniforms bleached by flash, a prom couple holding coffee like a chalice. Then he sees her. Same pale dress, same hair that the wind cannot decide. The hitchhiker stands by the pie case where he now stands, though in the photo, the pie case is newer and the neon more confident. In the corner of the Polaroid, someone has written a name that might be Grace or Gravel. The ink bled and became uncertain. The date stamped in the white border reads 1987. He moves to the next frame. It's a clipping from a local paper 2 dead in Route 66 pileup printed in columns, so narrow the word squeeze. A microscopic caption, "Driver fled scene." The photo is gray with ambition. Tow truck lights, twisted metal that could be any car, the wash of headlights bleaching the world. He wants to look away and doesn't. He finds himself at a final frame without meaning to travel there. It's a wider shot of the diner interior, years ago by the look of the appliances. A man sits in the booth. He refused the torn vinyl, the clutch of shadow. The man's profile is turned slightly, just enough to be not quite him. The jacket is his jacket. The angle of the head is his. He studies the grainy ear, the hairline that thinks it's unique. The date in the corner is too degraded to help. The glass over the photo shows him his own face looking back, and for a second, his reflection does not move with him. Bathroom? He asks, because you can only stand in front of yourself for so long. Betty points down a short hallway that ends in an exit door with a chain on it that has learned patience. The bathroom is single-stall, mercifully unambitious. The mirror over the sink is bolted on crooked. Evan turns the tap and cold water stammers from the faucet as if it hasn't been asked to do this in a while. He splashes his face and meets his eyes and thinks, with a humorless flare of relief, that at least mirrors still believe in him. Then the room dims and brightens, like a light bulb, remembering to be a star. The hand dryer starts on its own, a roar that fills all the spaces where thought meant to be. Over the white noise, a voice edges through not words at first, just syllables looking for a place to land. When they find it, they are his name. Evan. Once. Twice. The second time is his mother's voice when she was angry, but keeping it civilized. The third time is a stranger's. He opens the stall door, though he didn't close it. On the inside, near the latch, someone has scratched 3 characters into the paint with a key. 1011. The lines wobble as if the hand making them was shaking from cold or grief. He touches the freshness without touching it. The paint around it is unmarked, unpeeled, new in a way nothing else here is. When he steps back into the dining room, the room has rearranged itself by degrees. The cook is watching a flat top that no longer smokes. The man with the ball cap has folded his hands like a parishioner. The newspaper man has turned a page that has nothing printed on it. The clock still says 10:11 and pretends it always will. His coffee sits where he left it and has developed the sullen skin of neglect. Betty materializes at his table with a plate. House pie, she says. On the house. He didn't order it. The crust is latticed so neatly it could teach geometry. The filling is a red too bright to be an ingredient. He thinks of the matchboxes diners used to hand out and how you could always tell the places that remembered the world could be dark. She sets something under the lip of the plate for his fingers to find. A matchbook. Sunset Motor Lodge vacancy in block letters. A crude illustration of a palm tree bent by a wind that does not belong here. On the inside flap, in ballpoint pressed too hard, someone has written RM12 and beneath it, ask for a key. Betty meets his eyes like a favor being offered. You look like you could use a med. His throat tries to explain that he doesn't do motels, that stopping is how troubles learn your name. What comes out is, how far? Just up the road, she says, and her smile is the same smile in her photograph, even if the year has forgiven it. You passed it already. He slides the matchbook into his pocket, and the act feels like borrowing money from someone you don't intend to pay back. He stands, leaves enough bills on the table to buy a memory, and heads for the register. Betty rings nothing into a till and tears a receipt from nowhere. The paper is warm. His name is on it. The time says 10:11. You sure you don't want the corner booth? She asks lightly, as if offering dessert. Not my style, he says, and here's how untrue it is. The bell over the door chimes twice when he leaves. In the glass, he catches the diner reflected behind him, the booths occupied by a scatter of lives that might be his if he rotates correctly. For the tiniest slice of a second, he sees himself still seated 2 booths down, head bowed over coffee, a figure poised to look up, but never quite doing it. He turns, quick, to catch the angle without glass in the way. The booth is empty. Betty is beneath the clock, picking at an invisible stain. Outside, the frost on the gray sedan has not melted. His breath doesn't cloud, even though the air takes a sharper edge. He unlocks his car, and the smell of its sun-baked vinyl, pine tree outline. The faint metal note of the St. Christopher greets him with the relief of things being ordinary. On the passenger seat sits a check presenter he did not bring out. Black vinyl, a thin slip of paper tucked inside. He opens it. It's the photograph from the wall, him, but not him in the shadowed booth, only in this version. The camera has been closer. The profile is perfect. The reflection in the frame glass is missing. He slides the photo under the glove box bulged with the other and closes it, listening to the click as if clicks are promises. He starts the engine. The radio finds its footing in an instant, no scan or struggle, and the voice he's been pretending isn't there returns. Gentle as an elbow in the ribs. Sundown Motel is 2 miles ahead. Ask for a key. Sunset, he says to the dashboard, to the voice, to himself. It says sunset. The speaker crackles once, a laugh or a swallow. You know the way. The neon drops away behind him like a curtain. The road steps back into its roll-dark glass, stretched taut, lane lines persuading motion. In his pocket, the matchbook edges against his thigh in time with his pulse. He thinks of the hitchhiker's hand, cold and sure on his forearm. He thinks of the photograph, dated 1987, and the way time can be a circle if you lean on it. He thinks of the corner booth he didn't sit in, and the way a choice can be a mercy or a door. Ahead, the night rearranges itself to become a sign with a palm tree that doesn't belong, and a promise it means to keep. He drives towards Sunset Motor Lodge vacancy, and the road, satisfied with the shape of his choices, widens its smile. The road past the diner shrinks into a darker kind of silence, like the night has shut a door behind him. The Sunset Motor Lodge vacancy sign rises from the shoulder with its out-of-place palm tree bending the wrong way, as if bowing to weather that never happens here. The neon hums at a pitch that sets his molars on edge. Evan pulls in because he told himself he would, and because telling yourself is sometimes the only way to make a choice feel like yours. The parking lot is a low rectangle of cracked asphalt, paint lines faded to suggestions. A coin-op ice machine breathes beside the office door. The lobby is a glass box lit too bright for sincerity. A lattice of dead bugs smudges the fluorescent covers. When he opens the door, the bell chimes twice same tone as Roy's, same 2-note rhythm, like a greeting practiced across locations. A counter divides the room from a back office that looks like it belongs to an older decade, wood paneling the color of tea, a corkboard with curling postcards, a calendar permanently turned to October, though the air outside is high summer warm. A woman steps out from the back in a cardigan, the hue of weak mustard and a kindness that seems worked at. Her name tag says Marion, in block letters that look hand-punched. Evening, she says, setting both hands on the formica like she's steadying a boat. Her smile is wide, but doesn't reach the part of her eyes that decides what's real. Back so soon? He swallows the reflexive "I've never been here." It never works, and maybe that's not the point. He sets the matchbook on the counter like a password. Room 12. Marion doesn't look at the matchbook. She looks at his face as if reading the notes someone else made. Of course. She turns to the wall where a grid of brass hooks holds keys on plastic fobs, the color of faded pool water. There are 3 tags labeled 12. 2 are empty. She takes the third, the key a long-toothed old thing that looks like it would unlock memories as easily as metal. Sign here, sugar. She slides a ledger toward him, an honest-to-God paper registry, columns ruled in blue, headings in a careful hand. Name, car, time, nights. Beneath today's date, there's already an entry. His name in a tilt that resembles his when he's tired. The make and plate of his car, correct down to the scratch on the license frame. The time, 10:11. A faint brown ring stains the corner, as if a coffee cup had considered sitting there and decided to. I Didn't sign this, he says, which sounds childish the second it exists. Marion hums in a key that means we both know better, but I won't make you say it. You must have stopped by while I was in the back. Pen's there if you want to tidy it up. She slides him a pen whose cap is chewed flat. He writes his name anyway, because resisting the paper feels like resisting weather. The ink catches in the groove of the previous signature and thickens there, black over gray, making the letters look older than his hand. He notices, as he dots the last letter out of habit, that the line above yesterday, if this book honors days also, has his name, same car, same time. The line below is empty and indents faintly, as if a future weight has already leaned on it. Second floor, Marion says, handing him the key. End of the run, rails sturdy. Door sticks if you don't lift on the handle. He counts out cash because a card feels too modern for this arrangement. Marion rings nothing anywhere. The till remains closed. She slides a receipt across anyway, thin and warm. 10:11. Coffee in the morning, she adds. Hot enough. Pie if you didn't get a slice at Betty's. He doesn't ask how she knows. People out here always know. Or the road tells them. Outside, the walkway is a 2-story ribbon of concrete with a metal rail that lists just enough to notice in your peripheral vision. Moths bead the bulbs like quiet hail. Room numbers are stamped on aluminum plates with the confidence of a law. 12 sits at the very end, a door slightly more sun-baked than its neighbors, a chain lock dulled to the color of old coins. When he slides the key in, the lock gives with a softened click, like a knee that's learned compromise. A room is tired in a careful way. A single window faces the lot. The curtains are floral, an approximation of cheer. The bedspread is patterned in squares that don't quite line up with the mattress seams. A cigarette burn freckles the carpet near the knitstand. The air conditioner in the window starts with a cough and settles into a drone that pretends to be white noise. On the dresser, a TV the size of a carry-on glows with its own reflection until he turns it on and finds only snow. He sets his bag on the luggage rack, shakes a feeling from his shoulders like rain. The St. Christopher medal twitches on the rearview mirror out there where he can't see it and decides nothing. Evan places the matchbook on the knitstand and flips it open. Inside, on the paper you'd tear to strike the matches, someone has written RM12. Ask for a key in a hand that pressed so hard the letters debossed the cardboard. Underneath, smaller. Don't answer if they knock. He runs the shower because the idea of steam feels mortal. The water struggles at first, then finds a path. The mirror fogs at the edges and leaves the center clear like a peephole to his own face. He studies the tired there without deciding what it means. He brushes his teeth with bottled water because he has learned not to trust anything that claims it's fine by default. Back in the main room, the bedside clock radio says 10:11 in blocky red segments. He nudges the hour button, and the number stutters but returns to itself. He checks his phone without waiting for a miracle. No service. 148 and the difference sits in his chest like a coin he can't swallow or spend. He tries the TV again. Static yields to a local access channel that's no one's idea of entertainment. A stationary camera pointed at a bulletin board, covered in flyers, lost dog, church bake sale, a meets to their need roommate listing an address that feels a little off, a little too crisp in the wrong places. At the bottom of the screen, a ticker scrolls slow as a prayer. Sunset Motor Lodge welcomes you. Check out 10:11. When he blinks, the line vanishes. On the wall above the bed, where a watercolor used to be, hangs a Polaroid alone in a cheap frame. It's the room he's in, shot from the door. The bedspread pattern matches the one beneath his hand. A figure lies on the pillow in profile him, but not him again. The tilt of shoulder and erline identical to the diner picture, the mouth slightly open, like a word got left unfinished. Written along the bottom margin in blue ballpoint. Sleep well, Evan. The date is a smear that might be 1987, might be a thumb dragged through the ink. He crosses the room and lifts the frame from its nail. The photograph is stuck to the glass at the corners, adhesive gone brittle. He peels one edge free, and the sound it makes is small and obscene. Behind the photo, taped to the cardboard backing, someone has hidden a key identical to the one in his pocket. The tag reads 12. The metal is warm. He puts the frame back and doesn't look at his face while he does it. Fatigue settles on him with the logic of weather. He flips the chain on the door because the matchbook asked him to. He tests the window. The latch clicks, dependable in the way of cheap things. He lies down on the bed without taking off his shoes because comfort feels like an invitation. The mattress springs speak a language he doesn't want translated. He keeps the lamp on and watches the ceiling until the blankness there becomes a screen for thoughts he doesn't have the equipment to fix. Footsteps find him. At first, it's a scrape shoe rubber on concrete. Then a slow, deliberate pacing outside the door, up to the jamb, retreating, returning. The rhythm is wrong for someone lost or arguing with a key. It's right for someone measuring. The knob turns once, firm. The chain takes the question and answers no. The knob stills. A pause. Then a single knock, not with knuckles, but with the flat of a hand. He holds his breath because breath announces you live here. He thinks of the matchbook's instruction. Don't answer if they knock. The footsteps move along the railing, past his window. A shadow slips across the curtain. A head and shoulders at a height that suggests someone tall or someone standing on something. The shadow stops at the center of the window and leans. He can see the precedent in the barely there flecks of the cheap fabric. Second floor, he reminds himself. The press deepens, the outline wrong in some quiet way he can't name. He stares until the window answers nothing back. The phone on the nightstand rings. It's a sound that means kitchen calls and distant relatives, and in this room, it shouldn't be able to happen. He looks at the handset like it's an animal that made it into the house. The red light doesn't blink. He picks it up because telling yourself what you do is the only power left. A hiss, then the radio jingle filtered through kilometers of bad wire. Buckle up for safety? The melody drifts away, and the breathy voice arrives, close enough to fog the line. Leave the chain on. It says his name tucked at the end like a signature. Don't open the door. Not this time. Who is this? Evan asks, honest and tired. Silence that is not a dial tone. Then softer, almost nice. Don't look under the bed. He hangs up because there's no right way to stay on after that. The footsteps return to the door as if called by the verb look. The knob turns in small trials, like a safe being cracked. The chain lifts a fraction and sighs against its bracket. The door inhales with the building. Evan swings his feet off the bed and sits on the edge, palms flat, making his weight an argument. Something shifts in the mattress beside him. Not much, just enough for the bed to offer the small give that happens when another body makes itself known. He doesn't look. He can feel it, the slight redistribution of gravity, the dip near the pillow like a person has just decided to lie down and listen. Air cools along his forearm, the kind of chill made by breath. He stares at the Polaroid on the wall and notices the figure in the bed has turned his head a fraction, as if to catch a word more clearly. Not tonight, Evan says to the room, to himself, to the road that has made the room. He stands. The weight rises with him or doesn't. The mattress flattens the way everything eventually does. The footsteps move away. The rail outside gives a low groan, as if someone leaned on it to consider. From the adjacent room comes a muffled thump, then a voice like a panic held behind teeth. Help. It's not a scream. Screams are for public places. This is the private kind of ask. Evan presses his eye to the peephole and sees nothing but the stale geometry of the walkway. He puts his hand flat to the door and feels the slow slide of another palm on the other side, matching his without pressure. He does not open the door. When he lies back down, the clock says 10:11, and has perhaps always said 10:11. He tells himself he will keep the lamp on and watch the room watch him until the sun changes the physics. Instead, his eyes close one at a time, traitors. He wakes to weak daylight diluted through the curtain. For a second, he believes in morning. The air conditioner still impersonates the ocean. The clock says 6:23, as if it has learned forgiveness. He turns his head. The other half of the pillowcase bears a faint oval stain, darker than the fabric. He touches it. It is dry, not tacky, and cold in a way that is not temperature. He stands and opens the door to the walkway. The rail holds. Far down, the second floor in room's door hangs ajar. A do not disturb sign faces outward with the grammar of wish instead of command. He walks that way and peeks in. The bed is made with military neatness. On the knitstand sits a single diner sugar packet, the kind you tear diagonally. Its label reads Betty's in script that thinks it's famous. Back at his room, he checks under the bed because the voice told him not to. There is nothing but the rectangle of dust where luggage lived in this room for years and a small toy car die-cast metal, the paint scorched away on one side, the wheels still willing to turn. He palms it, and it is warm, as if it's been in someone's hand. He pockets the toy and takes his key to the office. Marian looks up from nothing. "Sleep?" she asks. "Enough," he says, which is sometimes the same as no. She tilts her head at the ledger. "You're all squared," she says. She slides a slip toward him, the way people return a photograph they wish you hadn't shown them. It's a Polaroid he didn't know had been taken. His room from the foot of the bed, him lying on top of the covers, eyes closed, one hand visible on the blanket, the other relaxed off the edge. The lower right corner reads "Sleep well," Evan in the same ballpoint as before. The ink is dry enough to flake. He doesn't ask who took it. The answer would be a kind of weather. "Coffee's at Betty's," Marian says, and smiles like directions are kindness even when they are circles. "You'll hear stories there. A beat. Be careful who you tell yours to." Outside, the sun has climbed just enough to make the motel look almost normal. The palm tree on the sign wags at nothing. He slides behind the wheel, the car forgiving him with a familiar smell. The St. Christopher medal taps the mirror, a punctuation he didn't earn. On the passenger seat, the two photographs from the glove box shift with the car's idle and make a soft paper whisper that sounds like again. He pulls out onto Route 66. In the mirror, the sunset sign blinks, then, for one frame only, reads sundown before the letter tubes remember themselves. The highway receives him in its seamless way. Up ahead, the day is already busy making night. The morning light doesn't feel earned. It slants across the hood of Evan's car, making the dust sparkle like it's proud of itself. He rolls out of the Sunset Motor Lodge lot with the toy car in his pocket and the Polaroids bulging in the glove box. The highway yawns open, same as always, but he can't shake the sense that he's not leaving the motel behind, just circling through an endless set of stages. The road soon delivers him back to the diner like a reflex. Betty's, open 24 hours, glows brighter in daylight than it has any right to, its tubes buzzing as though night never really ended. He almost drives past. Almost. His gut insists that stopping is stupid. His coffee-deprived brain insists that maybe stupid is necessary. He pulls in. Inside the diner, the bell chimes its double note as he steps inside. The booths look exactly as he left them. One torn in the corner, one under the clock, one that never feels empty, even when it is. Betty appears from behind the counter, smile stiff as a postcard. "Morning, hun. You look better," she says, which lands less like comfort and more like accusation. Evan doesn't bother asking how she knows. He slides into a booth near the door, just in case leaving becomes urgent. Two other travelers are already inside. One is a long-haul trucker with shoulders like furniture and a ball cap that's sweat-dyed dark at the brim. The other is a young woman with a backpack at her feet and a stare that drifts too often toward the window, as though she's afraid of missing something coming down the road. Betty pours coffee without asking, then drifts away, leaving the three of them in a silence too deliberate to be natural. The trucker breaks it first. His voice is gravel rolled around in a tin. "You ever see the headlights?" He asks, not looking at Evan directly. The trucker's story. Evan doesn't answer right away. He's not sure if the question is rhetorical or if it's been aimed at him specifically. But the trucker goes on. Words thick with memory. Two beams. Always right on your tail. Never pass, never fall back. Sometimes they follow you for miles, hours even. Look in the rear view too long. You start to think you see faces inside that car. Not people people who know you. The young woman flinches, pulling her coffee mug closer like a talisman. "I saw them last week," she says, her voice thin. "Thought it was just me going crazy. But when they got too close, I swear the driver's face was my own." Evan's throat tightens. He remembers the empty highway behind him and the way the diner's neon seemed to appear no matter how far he drove. He doesn't say anything, but the toy car in his pocket feels heavier. The legends multiply. The trucker shifts in his seat, lowering his voice. "Not just headlights. You ever hear about the phantom cop? Blue and red lights come out of nowhere, pull you over. Officer steps out, all official, until you notice he's not carrying a ticket book, he's carrying a body bag. If you don't drive off right then, you end up ridden in the back of it." The young woman squeezes her mug until her knuckles pale. "Or the kids," she whispers. "They run across the asphalt at night, barefoot. You slam the brakes and swear you've hit them. But when you look, the road's empty, except the sound doesn't stop. You still hear their laughter in the back seat." Evan's skin prickles. He remembers the faint handprint on his windshield from 2 nights ago, the hitchhiker's cold grip on his forearm, the Polaroid of him sleeping. Every story these strangers spill out matches something he has already lived. It feels less like coincidence and more like a script he's stuck reading line by line. The mirror test. Betty returns with a plate of pie for each of them, unasked. Evan stares at his sliced latticework crust, identical to the one he'd already seen the night before. His stomach knots. The young woman catches his eye. "You ever check the mirrors?" She asks, almost conspiratorial. "They say reflections don't lie. But out here, sometimes the face you see isn't your own." She gestures toward the wall of photos. Evan reluctantly looks. Between the softball teams and prom couples, a new photo hangs that wasn't there yesterday. A grainy shot of this very booth. 3 figures sit inside him, the trucker, the young woman frozen mid-conversation. His reflection in the window behind them, though, isn't seated. It's standing outside, looking in. The pie turns to sawdust in his mouth. Escalation of paranoia. The trucker wipes his mouth with a paper napkin, then leans closer. The road's got a memory. It loops people through until they forget which side they're on, living or dead. That's why the stories all sound the same. Different faces, same endings. Evan hears the truth tucked in the gravel of his voice. The loop isn't just repeating events, it's recruiting them. Every traveler's story is a rehearsal for the next. A sudden crash cuts through the room, the young woman's mug splitting in her hand, shards scattering across the table. She gasps, clutching her palm. No blood, no cut. Betty's voice floats from behind the counter, calm and unbothered. "Don't worry, sugar. Happens all the time." She sweeps up the pieces with a rag, leaving no trace. Evan realizes with a hollow certainty that the mug never broke at all. The pieces vanish before he blinks. The young woman's hands are clean, untouched. Yet the sound still rings in his ears. preparing for the next step. The trucker slides a folded slip of paper across the table, the movement hidden beneath the shadow of the pie plates. Evan hesitates, then takes it. On the paper is a scrawled map of the highway ahead, crude but clear. An old gas station, an overpass, a side road marked with an X underneath, a note. If the lights follow, don't stop. The young woman shivers. They always follow. Betty sets the check on the table, though no one ordered anything. The total is handwritten, 10:11. Evan pockets the slip of paper, feeling the road's next demand settle in his chest. He knows what's coming. The headlights, the chase, the choice to either keep driving or pull over and surrender. As he steps outside, the sunlight falters, dimming like a bulb, trying to decide between life and death. In the glass of the diner's door, he catches his reflection one last time. For a moment, it lingers even after he has stepped away, watching him with a patience he can't afford. The diner bell chimes its double note behind him. The road, waiting, clears its throat. The trucker's map rides shotgun, folded and creased like it's been through too many pockets. Evan drives with one hand on the wheel, the other hovering over the slip as though touching it might anchor him. The road spreads thin and gray, featureless except for the mile markers ticking by like slow heartbeats. The diner's neon is long dropped behind, but the taste of coffee and the sight of that photograph, his reflection outside the window, watching, won't let go. He keeps glancing in the mirror, half hoping, half dreading. At first, there's nothing. Then, headlights. 2 white circles bloom in the darkness behind him, small at first, then steady, unblinking. Too perfect. Too patient. He adjusts the rear view, but the beams never flare or fade the way normal headlights should. They just exist, locked in place as though painted on the glass. First signs of the chase, Evan presses the gas. The speedometer needle climbs. The headlights match every mile, never shrinking, never surging. The radio, dead for miles, coughs into life. Static breaks into a thin voice. Keep driving, don't stop. He twists the dial, but every station only repeats the same phrase, sometimes his own voice, sometimes his mother's, sometimes a stranger's. He exhales hard. Not funny. The toy car in his pocket digs against his thigh like it wants to be remembered. He touches it, and the metal burns cold. The overpass, the trucker's map promised landmarks. An old gas station, then an overpass. They appear on schedule, as though the road wants him to know it's following the script. He passes the gas station, its pumps hollowed out, the building sagging inward. No lights, no glass. Just absence. Then the overpass looms, a concrete skeleton. As his headlights sweep across its pillars, he sees shapes standing in the shadow silhouettes of people shoulder to shoulder, watching. They don't move. They don't wave. Just eyes, dozens of them, glowing faintly like cats caught in a beam. He forces himself to look forward. The car surges beneath the bridge, and for a moment, the headlights behind him vanish in the darkness of the underpass. Relief punches through him, until they reappear, closer. Escalation of terror, the beams now flare against his mirrors, bleaching the car interior in a harsh white wash. His knuckles grip the wheel until they ache. Then he sees it, a third shape in the back seat, just for a blink, caught in the reflection. Pale clothes, long hair. The hitchhiker. He spins in his seat empty. When he looks forward again, the road has changed. The lane lines split into 3, then 5, then curl in on themselves like veins. His headlights illuminate a stretch of asphalt that doesn't look paved at all, more like skin, taut and stretched, with cracks weeping dark fluid. He jerks the wheel, and the world rights itself, the road snapping back to gray. The headlights behind him never falter. The crash that isn't. The map's last marking, a side road with an X, he sees it now, cutting sharp into the desert, the sign too clean for its age. He nearly takes it and hears the young woman's voice from the diner in his head. They always follow. So he stays straight. The lights swell, blinding now, as if the car is about to be swallowed whole. He braces for impact, every muscle a live wire. And the sound comes. The slam of metal on metal, the rending of steel. His car fishtails, tires screaming across asphalt. He tastes copper as his head snaps against the seat. He's certain he's wrecked, certain he's spinning. But when the world stills, he's on the same road, headlights steady in the mirror. His car hums without a dent, as if the crash belonged to someone else, some other loop. The gas station revisited desperate, he pulls off at the next turn, finding himself in another gas station lot. His chest eases until he sees the sign. Roy's, same pumps. Same buzzing canopy. Same crooked R. The station hasn't moved. He has. The loop folds tight around him, a noose. The headlights pull in behind him, flooding the lot with a sterile glow. He can't see the car's shape, only the blinding beams. He stumbles out of his seat, shielding his eyes, moving toward the station door. The bell chimes twice. Inside, the clerk looks up from the counter, face as gray and unworn as before. Back so soon? Evan spins to the glass wall. The headlights outside cut off, the lot suddenly empty. No car, no beams. Just the hiss of moths circling the canopy. The clerk slides a receipt across the counter, unasked. The paper is damp with coffee rings. The timestamp reads 10:11, the final push of the chapter. He folds the receipt into his wallet with shaking hands, feeling the bulge of identical slips already there. His voice sounds brittle. If I keep driving, do they stop? The clerk shrugs, eyes old as dust. Nobody keeps driving forever. Evan leaves the station and returns to his car. The map still rests on the passenger seat, though it looks older now, edges curling, paper yellowing. The X on the side road has bled across the page, dark ink spreading like a wound. He starts the engine. The radio hisses, then clears into the same voice as before. Not much farther now. The road yawns out ahead of him, endless, patient. Behind, the headlights bloom again, waiting. The road feels narrower now, though Evan knows it hasn't changed. The desert should stretch out forever, but tonight the darkness leans in close, pressing on the glass, hemming him in. The headlights behind him still hang at their steady distance, sometimes near, sometimes far, always present. He no longer questions if they are real. They are as real as the receipts, the Polaroids, the diner's pie. Real enough to work. The map on the passenger seat has aged further, its edges curling brown, the ink bleeding into a shape that isn't exactly an X anymore, like a spill that always finds the same low ground. Someone's shaky hand once circled a turnout just past mile marker 318. Beneath the circle, a note in blunt pencil. If you remember, stop. The trucker's voice from the diner rides the words. Not much farther now, and the radio obliges by waking, offering only static arranged into the idea of a lullaby. The turn appears late, as if embarrassed to be seen. It's a slip of old road, a patched lane that peels away from the highway and drifts toward the ghost of an alignment no one funds anymore. Evan signals out of habit and realizes signaling is a way of asking permission. He turns without waiting for an answer. The old alignment runs beside a low guardrail that's been kissed by more than weather. Its posts lean. Its bolts show orange at the tips. In his headlights, the asphalt widens, revealing a scatter of things that used to be part of bigger things. Dots of glass bright as frost, a coin pressed flat by time, a piece of chrome with a curve that remembers a curve. The air has that odd sweetness he now recognizes not as anything edible, but as fluids with names coolant, washer, the chemistry of bad nights. He stops the car because the map told him to, and because pretending not to see is no longer an option. His hazards tick a red metronome onto the dark. The two white headlights behind him don't follow onto the spur. They hold their place on the main road like patient eyes. There's a shoulder wide enough for grief. He steps out, and the night makes itself quickly around him, as if it was waiting with his shape already cut out of it. The St. Christopher medal taps the mirror in a rhythm that doesn't match the hazards, an offbeat that feels like a reminder. He walks the guardrail until he finds it, a crescent scrape on metal, right under dust. A dent at human height that will never be the original shape again. The stubborn tufts of dry grass that have learned to grow around glass. And on the dirt beyond, tucked between two posts, a makeshift shrine clings to its job. Silk flowers bleached to a palette of goodbyes. A small plastic angel with a crooked wing. A laminated clipping pinned by a rusted thumbtack. And a picture in a cloudy frame. A woman with wind-tossed hair, smiling into a camera that loved her, standing with a boy who's doing his best to be serious with a toy car in his fist. The boy's car is the same model as the die-cast in Evan's pocket, not similar. The same, missing paint along the right side, a notch above the rear wheel where it must have been dropped one afternoon and wept about for a minute before moving on. He takes the toy out, shocked by how naturally it sits in his palm, as if his hand had been waiting to finish holding it. The laminated clipping has bled at the corners, but the headline still shows the teeth of its need. 2 dead en Route 66 pileup. Driver fled scene. Below, the names haven't faded in the same way. The woman, Grace Harkins, 29. The boy. Initials only, because sometimes newspapers think that's kindness. The date, 1987. You weren't there, he says aloud, which is a lie so tired it can't stand up. The desert doesn't answer. The road makes the sound roads make tires far off, a low thread of intent. He sets the toy car at the base of the shrine. It fits an oval in the dirt the way a key fits a lock. He doesn't like what that suggests. Memory arrives the way fog does. Part vision, part damp air you have to breathe to prove you're here. It starts with the radio jingle he has been trying to laugh off. Buckle up for safety, buckle up. The cheerful tyranny of it, the way the singer bites the P. He had been younger, not that much younger, driving west because motion was easier than the talk he was avoiding. The road had looked the same strip of promise, same black flanks keeping their secrets. He'd been tired in a way no nap cures. He blinks now and is blinking then, and the blink takes a fraction too long. Headlights ahead had flared, 2 sets, side by side for a breath, and then one had crossed the center line. He braked. The car went light, the godless, weightless moment before contact. The burled sound of metal. The slow tumble of things that didn't want to tumble. The hiss of a ruptured world leaking. He was out of the car before he had finished stopping. He remembers that, the smell of hot rubber and hot fear. He remembers the other driver's window, starred like frost, impossible to see through until it wasn't. A woman's face bloodless white, hair everywhere, eyes wide and still purposeful turning toward him. Her mouth moved and made a sound he still hears at the edges of sleep. Not a scream, something practical help like asking someone to move a couch. He had moved closer. He had seen the back seat. The toy car had lodged beneath the passenger seat, held there by a little luck. A tiny denim knee shifted against a seat belt. He had said the right things. It's okay, and I'm here, and I'll get help. Then the sound of another car had arrived, more headlights, a horn, voices, but all of it felt far away, as if he had already left. And then he had left. He wants to say it was shock, that he was concussed, that the world had narrowed to a tunnel where footsteps mean tunnel logic. The truth is uglier and simpler. The truth is that he had backed away while nodding as if he were approaching, had stepped into his own car that still thought it could be a car, and had driven the wrong direction on the soft shoulder, until the road stabilized beneath him and choice became momentum again. The truth is, he took the next turnout and the next until there were no sirens in his mirrors. Only his face young, pale, stripped down to whatever survival looks like when it doesn't want to admit its name. He had not stopped at a diner, because stopping anywhere would require words, and words would require him. He holds the guardrail now and tries to breathe all the way in. The metal is cold, colder than the night. His phone sits dead in his pocket the way it has sat dead for days. He takes it out anyway, and the bars appear as if painted on 3, then 4, then a full fan of possibility. The time reads 10:11, though the sky says otherwise. He dials without thinking 911, and the call connects so quickly it feels like an ambush. Emergency, a woman says, ordinary and awake. There was a crash on Route 66 near the old alignment at 318, he says, and here's what he has chosen to do. His voice leans toward shaking and doesn't quite get there. 2 vehicles. One overturned. A woman and a child. He stops, edits, refuses to add anything that sounds like a detail he doesn't deserve. I left, he says. The words land like the toy car did into the shape that had been waiting. Years ago, I left. Silence on the line, then the empathetic professional cadence. Sir, can you confirm if there's a current collision? I don't know what it is, he says. I know it's still happening. The line pops and rearranges itself into the softer grain of an old connection. The operator's voice shifts down the decade's same words, older wire. Stay on the line, she says, and he has the unkind thought that he has heard this before too. Headlights swell on the highway. He turns, and for a second every era overlays every other. The 2 cars approach each other endlessly in the far lane, trapped in that last second where brakes haven't meant anything yet. The air tightens, the desert holds its breath, and then the moment replays, the screech, the swerve, the impossible coincidence of masses. Except he's watching it from the shoulder this time, and nothing changes, and that is the point. He senses her before he sees her. The air cools in a way that isn't weather, and the scent of rain on hot pavement, the mineral tongue he first noticed in his car, gathers at his shoulder. When she speaks, her voice has moved a long distance to arrive. Now you remember. He turns. The hitchhiker stands beside the shrine. In his lights, she's only somewhat there, edges definite, center borrowed, but her eyes are not fog. They're intent. Close up, she looks younger than the picture, and older than the road. Her hair still can't decide which way the wind wants it. The dress is the same pale knot color from the shoulder of the highway. Grace, he says, and the name feels right in his mouth, less like a word than like a gate that was always supposed to swing open. I didn't stop. No, she agrees, and somehow there is no accusation in it. There's a tiredness that has learned to stand up straight. You kept going. She looks past him toward the highway that is forever. We were going to stop at the diner. That's why you shouldn't. The line finds him again through the phone speaker. Sir, are you safe? He sets the phone on the guardrail without hanging up and steps closer because he has spent too long not stepping. Does it matter that I'm here now? He asks. He means the question in every possible way. He means, does it help you? He means, does it undo anything? He means, does it release me? He means, do I have to be something else after this? Grace's gaze drops to the shrine. She notices the toy car where it should have been all along and nods, small, not ceremonial, just a little gear finding its notch. Some roads don't forgive, she says. They offer rolls. She lifts her chin toward the highway, to where 2 white circles live in his mirror like moons that chose the wrong orbit. Folks out here get assigned. The hitchhiker, he says, because sometimes naming is the only control you get. Somebody has to warn the next one, she says, and when she smiles, it's not kind and not unkind. It's the smile of a person who knows all the endings, and none of the shortcuts. Somebody has to sit in the booth and not order anything. Somebody has to be on the other side of the glass. He thinks of the photograph in the diner where his reflection stood outside, watching him talk. He thinks of the Polaroid in the motel, the version of him that slept and the version that watched. He thinks of the ledger and how many lines there are for names that repeat. What happens if I stay here, he asks, and I don't drive anymore? Behind her, the replayed collision completes its loop, again light on metal. The soft cough of engines dying, the long elastic silence that follows every violence. Grace's eyes shine in a way that isn't moisture. It's just like deciding to do this tonight. Then you take a different place on the road, she says. Maybe you hold a flashlight while people dig, and maybe sometimes the batteries work and sometimes they don't. Maybe you stand on the overpass and count the cars that don't make it. Maybe you call strangers from motel phones and tell them to leave the chain on. A tilt of her head that includes him in the arithmetic. Maybe you tell someone not to stop at the diner, and sometimes they listen, and sometimes they don't. And if I drive, you drive, she says, until the road gives you a job. For a moment, he hates the logic of it, how the only way out is through, and the only way through is to agree to be repurposed by the thing that took him apart. He picks up the St. Christopher medal from his mirror as if to ask for a second opinion. The little saint is smooth with other people's thumbs, the kind of smooth you can't buy new. On the back, tiny and almost rubbed away, a letter has been scratched with something sharp. Gee, he has never seen that before, or he has always chosen not to. He slides the chain through a rough notch in the guardrail and leaves it there because returning things is another form of talk. The phone on the rail murmurs again. New operator, new decade, units and route. He looks down and the time on the screen clicks from 10:11 to a healthy nonsense like 2:53, then back again, like a bad heartbeat trying on rhythms. He ends the call, not because help isn't welcome, but because help and time don't share rules here. He turns back to Grace, but the exact place she stood is now only the place where his headlights find air. The shrine looks slightly more itself. The plastic angel's wing sits a touch straighter. He chooses to believe this is how physics pays debts. On the highway, the two white circles hold steady. He understands something about them now, not precise, more like a feeling you can balance in your palm. They are not a car. They are a roll. They come when the road needs a pursuer, and they stay when the road needs a witness. Sometimes they belong to what's behind you. Sometimes they belong to what you've chased off. He returns to his car because motion has been his language, and because he has finally given it a sentence that isn't just escape. He sits. The cabin smells exactly like its self-vinyl, pine memory, the iron mineral of rain that hasn't happened. The toy car is no longer in his pocket, which is correct. The map lies crumpled and brown as if it was written in fire. He starts the engine, and it catches on the first try, like a dog that decides not to test you today. Before he shifts into drive, he glances into the rear view. For a single frame less than a breath, he sees himself in the back seat, the decayed not quite him that the road once offered as a future. It looks at him without pity and without malice, and then it is the back seat again. The metal is gone from the mirror, and in its place the outline air freshener swings, a ghost of a tree in a place where trees don't win often. He pulls forward. The old alignment unspools, meets the highway like a tributary that can't help itself. The two white circles slide in behind, as if they were waiting for this cue. The radio clears not a station, exactly, more a voice without a throat. Not the diner, it says once, less warning than reminder, and the speakers go quiet. He merges. The lane lines accept him. The road, a machine that makes meaning out of miles, hums its single song. He feels the loop tighten and simultaneously loosen. The paradox that maybe you can only change the script by consenting to say your line. He drives west toward a night It has already written its ending. The headlights follow with the patience of a job they've held a long time. Somewhere ahead will be the palm tree that doesn't belong, and the office with the ledger that has room for one more repetition. Somewhere beyond that will be a traveler he doesn't know yet, a person who thinks they're just tired. He doesn't know which part he will be asked to play in their story. He suspects he already knows. The clock on his dash clicks to 10:11 and stays. He laughs once, the kind of laugh people mistake for strength, and the road takes it like a toll. The desert should look different at dawn, but it doesn't. The horizon is gray and taut neither night nor morning, as if the sky refuses to move forward until he plays his part. The dashboard clock, unbothered by astronomy, still reads 10:11. The two white circles behind him float at their careful distance, patient as a job they've had forever. Evan drives west because the road understands only that verb. Grace's words ride with him in the cabin air. Some roads don't forgive. They offer rolls. The St. Christopher medal is gone looped around a guardrail where his thumbprints can be someone else's prayer now, and his pocket sits lighter without the toy car. He feels both losses the way you feel a tooth. You finally stopped hurting with your tongue. Grief and relief unervingly alike. The map on the passenger seat has given up pretending to be paper. It lies crumpled, edges scalloped, the X bled out until it's a bruise. He doesn't need it anymore. The landmarks live in him now. The overpass with its patient watchers. The turnout that believes in disaster. The diner that's always 2 miles ahead and also directly beside you if you blink wrong. He tries the radio and gets the jingle that started it all. Buckle up for safety, but the cheerful tyranny ends sooner this time. On the frequency's bare bones, a whisper threads itself together. You know the way. It isn't a threat. It isn't comfort either. It's logistics. The palm tree that doesn't belong tilts into view. Sunset Motor Lodge vacancy. Something about finishing the circuit feels necessary, like fastening a buckle before the drop. He signals and turns in. The lobby's fluorescents still hum in their insect choir. Marion appears from the back as if she just left, cardigan the color of patience. She looks at him like a person recognizes a regular at a grief group. Mornin', she says, as if morning is a decision. I need your phone, Evan says. The request surprises him with how ready it's been. Course. She slides a beige handset across the counter. The cord spirals like an old idea that never quite tangles. No question of payment. No question of number. He dials room 12 before he knows it. The ring is a soft mechanical click, like a throat clearing. On the second pulse, someone picks up. The background roar is a window unit pretending to be a C. Evan speaks into the mouthpiece and hears his voice slide back in time. Leave the chain on, he says, gentle and unarguable. He lets the breath of a half-second pass and adds, softer, like a secret you loan out. Don't open the door. Not this time. He should hang up there. He doesn't. Don't look under the bed, he finishes, because mercy sometimes wears the mask of cruelty. He sets the handset down and feels the satisfying click of the cradle identical to the click he heard 2 nights ago in his own ear. Loop closed. Instruction delivered. He can dislike the inevitability and still honor the form. Coffee? Marion asks, as if punctuation remains a kindness. Later, he says, and knows he won't be back for later the way she means it. Outside, the motel's second-floor rail keeps its lean. The Do Not Disturb sign still faces the wrong audience on the end room's door. A breeze finds him metallic, mineral, the smell of hot rain he now knows to be the ghost of coolant, and the future arguing with itself. He gets in the car and pulls out. The sunset sign winks, then for a blink reads sundown again, like a wink from someone who knows you finally understand the joke. He merges onto Route 66. The headlights follow. He drives until the diner's neon thins the horizon. He doesn't stop. He says not the diner aloud, and the road takes it as a formal declaration. The bell he can't hear chimes twice anyway in some other timeline where he pushes the door. The decision is a muscle. It remembers how to be used. Past the diner, the lane lines grow slippery again. They're white, trying on duplications and curls. Small acts of misdirection to test his willingness to lean. He keeps the wheel steady. The lines settle down like children told to behave. Mile marker numbers tick in a rhythm that thinks it's narrative. 315, 316, 317. On the 318 sign, something else changes. The headlights behind him don't surge. They slow. Their patience is still patience, but new. The job has been posted. Applicants should wait by the shoulder. There's a wide mouth of gravel where drivers who promise themselves they'll only stretch their legs pull over and end up sleeping with their heads on their arms. He pulls onto it because this is where hitchhikers stand in the kind of story that stops pretending. He steps out, and the heat of the engine's idle trades places with the cold of the air. He doesn't close the driver door. He leaves it ajar, a small bright hinge, as if time might need a wedge. Grace is not here, but the after image of her steadies the space. He takes off his jacket, dark denim that read as armor yesterday and costume today. Underneath, his white t-shirt has gone the color t-shirts go, and they've been argued with by too many laundromats. Dust finds his skin and makes everything pale. He reaches into the back seat and drags out the blanket he never uses. He keeps it on the shoulder because the things we don't need become offerings. He stands with his thumb lifted halfway, not the full theater gesture of someone making a choice for the first time, but the fractional angle of someone ready to warn. A car crests the low rise ahead, smaller than a truck, larger than need. Headlights twin and honest, not the eternal moons that have chased him. His chest tightens and eases. The fear, this time, isn't for himself. The car slows. Tires crackle through gravel. The driver window rolls down. The smell that comes out coffee, vinyl, a pine tree that used to be green hits him like a memory with hands. The driver leans toward the open window. He knows that face. He should not know that face this way, but the Luke does not care about polite tense. Younger, yes. Skin with fewer negotiations. Eyes still certain that maps are contracts. The mouth set in a line that believes in the sanctity of moving on. The jacket matches the one he just shrugged off. The St. Christopher medal is still on the mirror, silver bright, edges unthinned. The first version of the air freshener still has its color. "You need a lift?" the younger Evan asks. The voice is his, but pitched a shade lighter, uncluttered by receipts and Polaroids and the habit of not remembering. Evan rests his forearms on the window frame, the way people do when they decide to be more honest than is comfortable. Up close, he can see himself then. A nick on the chin from a rushed shave, a soft scab on the knuckle where a wrench slipped. Evidence of a life that has nothing to do with legends and everything to do with Tuesdays. "Yeah," he says, because the script wants a yes to proceed. He opens the passenger door and slides in. The cabin welcomes him with the intimacy of smell. The radio offers the warm hiss prelude to the jingle. He closes the door, and the world becomes a small room hurtling. "Where are you headed?" The younger version asks, reflexively polite, reflexively detached. Evan keeps his gaze forward, because the rear view will not bear looking at. Not the diner. The younger him laughs. A short disbelieving puff. Wasn't planning on it. His hands on the wheel relax, because he believes himself when he says it. The road rewards him by birthing a side road with exactly the kind of sign you deny wanting. Betty's. The younger Evan's fingers make a micro-adjustment to the wheel, a drift toward familiarity. Evan's hand moves without consulting the committee of caution he's built. It rests briefly on his younger forearm. The grip is gentle and iron both. "Keep straight." The younger Evan glances sideways, surprised, but not angry annoyance at the intimate imperative more than anything. His gaze flicks to the mirror in the same breath. In the glass, there is only one person in this car. His frown smooths for reasons he will forget later. He corrects the wheel, lets the side road unspool past. "Okay," he says, like conceding a point to someone he inexplicably trusts. For several long miles, they say nothing. The radio chooses static over chorus. The world outside chills toward light. The two eternal headlights appear behind them. But in this version, they keep their distance, and the distance means observation, not pressure. The overpass arrives. The watchers atop it stand in their invisible choir again. The younger Evan doesn't see them. His eyes are on the next mile, because everyone always thinks the next mile is safer. The older Evan sees them and isn't comforted and isn't frightened. He signs the attendance slip for being a person who knows the choir's hymns. At 318, the old alignment slips off right, demure as a beckoning hand. The younger driver doesn't take it. He brushes the turn with the same interest he gives to any mistake the map printed on purpose. The road holds. "Thanks," the younger Evan says after a while, tone easing, as if a spell has been delayed without him knowing there was a spell at all. "Weird night." "They usually are," Evan says. He wants to warn more. He wants to empty pockets full of Polaroids and matchbooks and clocks into his own lap. He wants to say, "You will leave when you shouldn't. Don't. If you do, life will put you to work on the cleanup crew forever." He wants to tell him about grace and the way some names open like gates. He wants to give him the toy car now, before the road has to teach him why it matters. He doesn't. Roles have job descriptions for a reason. Warnings must fit inside the size of what a person can carry in the moment they are given. The diner's neon blooms again in the side window. It's pink and blue, delighted with themselves. The younger Evan ignores it this time, because someone told him to, and because his pride is willing to pretend that was always the plan. The car sails past with a small defiant surge that feels nothing like victory and everything like postponement. The hitchhiker, the version who isn't seat-belted, looks down at his hands. They're not transparent. They're not particular either. Their hands a road would issue if it had to, functional and a little distant. He tucks his fingers under his thighs to warm them with mortal heat. He feels none of the old animal panic he expected. He feels the clean ache of acceptance, which is panic's quieter cousin. A glow opens in his mind the way a diner door opens when a bell decides to participate. He sees, as if the road has queued it up on a battered TV, a booth in a photo and his reflection outside it, the posture patient and terrible. He sees a ledger's line with his name written over itself, thicker where the pen found the groove. He sees Marion's set smile and the second 12 key behind the frame. He hears a telephone ring from both sides of a wall at once. He feels a mattress dip beside him. Each memory occupies its precise slot in the machine now. Each becomes part of the engine. The younger Evan slows a little, more out of philosophy than traffic. "You good to hop out up there?" he asks, nodding toward a shoulder pull-off where the gravel looks like a quilt 1,000 drivers kicked together out of their impatience. "Yeah?" Evan says. "This is me." They coast to the spot. The younger Evan keeps his foot on the brake longer than necessary, like politeness can hold a person in place. Evan opens the door. The air outside is cooler, bluer. He plants his shoes in the gravel and straightens. He leans down to the open window, says the only benediction that ever mattered on this stretch of road. "Keep straight." The younger him salutes without irony. "Thanks," he says, and the thanks is real in exactly the way small thanks are. Not world-fixing, but promise-shaped. He pulls away, the car merging neatly, the metal flashing once at the mirror, as if waving goodbye and hello in the same frame. Evan stands with his thumb at the halfway angle. The car's taillights diminish. The eternal headlights reappear behind them, adjusting their distance like a camera refocusing. For a brief, Disorienting second, he thinks they might follow the younger him instead, trailing him into a life shaped differently. But the lights steady back on Evan. Not hostile, not kind, only assigned. He turns, begins to walk along the shoulder. The road breathes. You can hear it if you know what to listen for. A few minutes later, another vehicle approaches, an old sedan with a paint color that refused to be named when it was new. The driver leans out, a woman in her 50s with a jaw stubbornly set against frightening things. "You need a ride?" She calls, voice mostly courage. "Yes," he says, and the yes is to more than the sedan. He slides into the passenger seat. Her dashboard hosts a hula girl that has survived worse than heat. The radio offers hissing comfort. He says as soon as a palm-sized silence opens, "Not the diner," and she nods like she's had the feeling and was waiting for language to justify it. He rides with her until the rules demand he vanish between the thought and the blink, as old hitchhiker stories insist, and he does, leaving behind only a smell of rain and a rectangle of Polaroid gloss on the seat that she will notice later and misplace and find again. Work, he discovers, is repetition with intention. He is surprisingly suited to it. Evening folds back down over the highway as if someone took the crease of dawn and pinched it shut. The neon redoes its tricks. The motel rehangs its promises. Roy's switches its buzzing syllables on and off until meaning and light match. Evan walks stretches and rides stretches, and sometimes stands in places where standing is the exact task. He calls a room from a phone that doesn't charge, tells a stranger to keep the chain on, and a circle somewhere inches closed. He sits in the corner booth of a diner he does not order from and allows someone across the room to think he recognizes them. He stands on the overpass for a minute and counts the cars to a number that isn't anything and knows this is part of the math anyway. He never looks in mirrors long. He does look enough to see that he is beginning to fade in the polite way photographs do. Contrast lowering, edges loosening. It doesn't hurt. It does make him careful with names. He keeps Grace's tucked where keys used to be. On a night that can only be called later, a car he doesn't immediately recognize slides toward him. It slows. It stops. The window lowers. The driver leans across. He has never met this man, but the shape of the man's exhaustion is familiar. In the rear view, for a fluttered instant, Evan sees nothing at all in the passenger seat and everything beside him in the glass outside. A reflection standing in the field of view, ready to be the person someone needs them to be. "Where are you headed?" the driver asks. Evan answers the way all roles answer when the road teaches them humility. "As far as you're going." They pull onto the highway. The lane lines accept the arrangement. Far behind and never far enough, two white circles hold their assigned distance. The clock on the dash in this car reads 10:11 and stays there like a stubborn scar. Ahead, the diner prepares a slice of red pie that looks like it was poured from a stop sign. The motel straightens its keys on their hooks. Roy's prints a receipt, then another, and tucks one under the counter for the version who already came. Evan looks at the mile marker, memorizes it for no reason that will survive the next loop, and smiles once. It's the kind of smile people mistake for bravery. The road opens its mouth, and he steps in, and the story continues, always 2 miles ahead and right beside you.